Hello there. Today I just wanted to go over how negative gearing works and why it sucks. My name is Thomas O'Regan. I'm a property investor here in Australia and I've built an 11 property portfolio between me and my wife over the last 3.5 years. We've built about $1 million worth of equity in that time. So when it comes to making money in property quickly, I have a pretty good track record when it comes to that. But one of the things that when me and my wife were building our property portfolio, we had to do was we had to buy positively cash flowing properties. And the reason for that was, and honestly, if I look back, it was probably for the best, was because we were on a low income. And the reason that we were buying positive cash flow properties is because we wanted to build a large portfolio. And most people in Australia, especially those that are stuck, or no, sorry, especially those that are on a higher income, tend to want to buy negative cash flowing properties because it's, I don't know, it just sounds so great. You get you buy property, you deduct, or you make a load of deductions, and then you get a big tax bill at the end of the year. But this is the actual numbers of how negative gearing works, and I would 100% not recommend doing negative gearing if or ever. But there are some benefits to it, and we'll go through that here. Just wanted to do a disclaimer. I'm not a tax accountant. These are just general numbers here, but this is how it works. So let's say in this example, you buy $1 million property and you're currently making an income of $150,000 per year. So let's say your rental income would be $36,000 per year. And if you didn't know yet, if you only have $36,000 coming in on $1 million property that you're purchasing, it is most likely going to be negatively cash flowing. So the combined income you have here is you have your 36,000 and your 150,000. That would be a total combined income of 186,000. Just so we're clear. Now, the property is that we're purchasing as an investment property, it comes with holding costs. If you had a $900,000 loan on it, as in when you bought it for a 10%, or you paid a 10% deposit and you had a $900,000 loan, on that loan, typically these days it would be a 6% rate. That would give you a $54,000 bill of interest that you would have to pay on a monthly basis. But that $54,000 would be annually the annual figure that you would ultimately pay. For a $1 million property, you got to do your own numbers, guys. Like, I really have to stress this. If you are buying property, you have to run your numbers. You have to know what the expenses are. But for this $1 million property in this example, the estimated cost of holding it, which would be land tax, property management fees, council rates, repair and maintenance, and all that sort of good stuff that you have to do when you're a property owner, would be estimated around $30,000. So the total holding cost of this property, meaning in the loan cost and all the other expenses, would be $84,000 a year. Now remember, the property has a $36,000 income. So if we go holding costs, which are these, minus the income, which is $84,000 minus $36,000, it's $48,000 of negative cash flow that you have to cough up to support this investment property. Don't worry, there's a light at the end of the tunnel and we'll get there. This is, it takes money to make money, all that stuff, whatever. But that cost, if I wouldn't be looking at this deal at all, right? Unless you had the capacity to support a property portfolio, which when I say property portfolio, I literally just mean one that is costing you $923 a week. I wouldn't buy this property unless you can afford $923 per week to hold it, because the reality is that's how much it's going to cost you. So once again, do your numbers as I say. So what's the upside on this property? The upside is you bought a $1 million property, and assuming it gets a really good growth rate, and when it comes to capital growth, it's just a matter of hoping and praying, guys. There's no possible way to guarantee capital growth, but there is a very high likelihood that you'll that you'll get your property will double every 7 to 10 years. But no one can say for sure if that's going to happen. So it's not like a linear thing and property prices just all go up at the same rate at the same time. This is investment. Nothing's guaranteed, but if I was buying $1 million property, I would be hoping this far negative cash flow, I would really be wanting it to get at least 8% growth per year, which is a very good performance. Let's just be clear. Personally, I do not look in my property portfolio, just a side note, I don't look for properties that are getting 8% growth per year. I look for properties that are getting around 5% growth per year. And you're probably thinking at this point, why on earth would you do that? Why wouldn't you buy properties that are getting a better growth rate per year? And the reality is because I can build a far larger portfolio buying positively cash flowed properties rather that are getting a 5% growth rate per year than I can buying one single investment property that is getting me 8% growth rate per year for a weekly cost of $923,000. So that's that, okay? So on paper, if everything goes well, you'll get 8% growth per year on $1 million in the first year. You'll get $80,000 of growth on this property. Hooray, that's why we're doing this thing, to get this growth here. That's wealth building, a form of it, let's just say. Now, minus the costs are $48,000 per year as we went over here. So whatever, I think we're all on top of this. Now, your profit, your capital growth profit minus expenses in the first year is $32,000. So let's just be clear. That's why we did it. That's why you would have bought this property in the first place, because you're looking to get capital growth, and you're looking at how much growth you're going to get, which is $32,000 after expenses. Okay? Now, here, this is why you probably clicked on the video. This is probably what you really want to understand. Tax advantages for negative gearing. And I'm not an accountant, by the way, but this is how I understand it, and this is how it works. So, as we said before, we are on 150 grand of income. Your normal tax rate, if you had absolutely no deductions whatsoever, your normal tax on 150 grand would be $39,000 per year. That's what it is, unless you had any tax deductions. Now, your new taxable income is $186,000 per year. And if you're wondering why you are on a higher income bracket, it's because you now have rental income. So what you do is you plus your personal income with your rental income to get to your new taxable income. And on your new taxable income, you would, if you had no deductions at all, you would pay $53,000 per year. But don't worry, you're not going to pay $53,000 per year because you're a property investor and you have a lot of tax deductions. So how does it all work? How does it all work? That's the real question of this video. So you would have your $186,000 per year. What you would do with that number is you would minus all your deductions, meaning your holding costs for the property, which is $84,000 per year. The holding cost for the property, which is $84,000 per year, you would minus that off your new total income. You would minus 84,000 off 186,000, right? So that would mean your new taxable income would be 120,000. So the ATO would redo their calculation and say, oh, actually, your income's only 102,000. Okay, great. We'll tax you on 102,000, which would mean your new tax bill would not be whatever we talked about before. It would be 23,000. So what you actually paid, because you're actually making $150,000 per year, you're going to work and you're getting paid that much money, they are actually taxing you 39,000. Now, what they're going to give you, what they're saying they should have taxed you on is $23,000 per year. So what are they going to do? They're going to give you a big refund. So the refund is going to be $16,000 per year. Right. So you're going to go, right, that's great. I got 16 grand back per year. I didn't pay $39,000. I paid $23,000, which would mean the property like the holding cost of the property is not $48,000 per year. It's actually only $32,000 per year. Are you guys with me? I hope so. Now, why? So, what does this all mean? It means you have a property that is growing very aggressively at 8% per year, 80 grand per year, that you're building $80,000 of wealth in the first year, and then you're paying $32,000 in expenses to hold the property after you get your tax back. Your profit in the first year, on paper, capital gains profit is $48,000 profit per year in the first year. That's why you bought this in the first place. It ultimately represents cash on cash return of it's a pretty good cash on cash return, actually. I mean, if you put in about 100 grand deposit to buy this property, it's a 48% cash on cash return, which is pretty good, to be fair. But just this is how negative gearing works, guys. The whole concept of it is you spend every dollar you spend, you get 30 cents back in the dollar, and that's not like the thing with negative gearing is it's good to be aware of it and understand it. It's kind of hard to understand sometimes, but the reality is, if you look at the big picture when it comes to investing, what you actually want to do is you want to focus on making as much money as possible. You want to focus on building your wealth as quickly as possible. And the reality is, as I know it, as I've done it, with me and my wife have built $1 million of equity in the last 3.5 years. It's more about buying properties that are positively cash flowed, and buying properties that have good cash flow potential, because the reality is negative gearing is just a sales pitch that tax accountants use to get people to buy properties that are not really that great of investment. Here, what I'm saying is, yes, the thing about property is most properties are good investments, but if you want to make a lot of money in the property game, like I have, then positive cash flow properties are far better, because the reality is most people are going to cap out at buying one of these. And they are going to cap out because the cost to hold it per week or per year is extremely high. So even if you're on a very good income of 150,000 or even more, even double it, even triple it, you will really not get very far when it comes to building a large asset base. Most people will cap out with one property, and that will stop them from buying multiple properties. It will stop them from building a large portfolio. If you buy positively cash flow properties like I have, then you can build a far larger property portfolio, which will ultimately get you to financial freedom. Paying $923 per week to hold this one property is, I mean, it's not really financial freedom. I would much rather have a large property portfolio that is growing, getting capital growth each year, that not only doesn't cost me money to hold, but it puts money in my pocket, which is the definition of positive cash flow properties. So hopefully this helped give you some clarity on how negative gearing works. See ya, bye.